So the future of the gaming industry is looking pretty interesting, and I sort of talked about this a little bit in my last episode, talking about how indie studios with their newly released games are doing better than some of the AAA studios and their big games that have been releasing recently. And I'll link that on the top of this video or in the description if you do want to check that after. But I like to look at it from a bunch of different angles. In this video, I want to talk about how for smaller studios as well, or maybe double A, but just all studios in general, how they have a chance to monetize in more ways, even right now and into the future, with platforms like Roblox, Fortnite, and even Sandbox coming out. We'll go a little bit into that. But first, my name is Mob Cola. You can call me Mob. And if you could do me a favor and drop a like on this video, or later if you do enjoy it, and subscribe if you're new here. I talk about a lot of this stuff, and mainly gaming news or things I'm interested about. And if you're on mobile, please hype the video if you can, and we'll get back into the video. But what I want to talk about today is how there are other ways for smaller studios, indie studios, to really monetize besides just releasing their mainline games onto, let's say, Steam, Epic, or whatever store, online storefront. But one way I did mention before is Fortnite. So if you don't know already, Fortnite has started letting creators create their own islands, basically Fortnite islands, and it's just their version of basically Roblox games created on Roblox. So these creators can create their own Fortnite islands, their own game modes, and be able to monetize the game that they create. So there are two ways right now that Fortnite is now letting creators earn money from their islands, and basically the main way since they started was the activity on their island. So if there were a lot of players or a lot of activity on their islands, let's say thousands or millions of users, they will get paid based on how active their islands are. And that's pretty much a standard across all these platforms we're going to talk about today, but that was mainly the main way people were getting paid once they did start releasing these Fortnite islands. But as of December 2025, Fortnite with uefn has allowed developers to start selling stuff on their islands or in their games, similar to how Roblox is able to sell, or Roblox creators are able to sell items or power-ups or whatever in their games for Robux, basically. So now Fortnite with uefn, they're allowing creators or developers to sell items or stuff like that in their islands for V-Bucks. And right now, based on what I see online, is Fortnite or Epic Games are allowing developers and creators to earn 100% of the V-Bucks that they do earn on their own islands or their own games. But this will only last for basically all of 2026, and then going into 2027, it seems like they will start taking half of what you earn from V-Bucks earned on their islands or their own games. No, I think this is pretty crazy, because if you're a smaller studio or a startup studio or even a solo developer, this could be like a viable option for you to get some side income, or maybe even be like your main income. I know there's probably developers or creators out there that their main source of income are from these platforms because they just keep developing, those popular or mainly played a lot games on these platforms like Fortnite and Roblox. So if they develop a trending game that does pretty well, I think they could earn some pretty good cash from it. Now, going on to Roblox, it's more of the same. We can see that Fortnite copied the whole blueprint from Roblox, but yeah, it's basically the same thing. Even though it's the same, Roblox does pay a little bit less to creators and developers compared to Fortnite. With Fortnite, it seems like Epic Games are completely giving all the money to creators and developers just so they can get more, creator developed games on their platform. But Roblox does have more fees or more percentages that they keep to themselves compared to Fortnite. But on Roblox, I believe you need to have a certain amount of people, visiting your game for the first time. It has to be one of the first games that they play that day, or even returning players coming back to your game that have spent money on Robux, I believe is the criteria. And then if you do have people spending Robux on your game, I believe there's also a certain percentage that Robux keeps. And to get paid on Robux, I believe it is you need a certain amount of Robux earned to be able to convert that into cash that you can withdraw. But compared to some of the most popular games on Roblox, you're definitely going to have players coming back frequently to your game, especially if it's a certain game that you're grinding, let's say levels on, or a game that is highly addictive to, a bunch of different young players or kids or whatever. Then it does become a viable option if you're able to make a good game on Roblox that has a decent player size, right? If you get a couple thousand, 10,000 players coming back to your game, I think you could earn a pretty good amount of Robux on it. And I think it is pretty viable for anyone, even a solo developer, because I'm always seeing Instagram posts, I'm seeing TikTok posts about people saying, oh, you have to start up your own game on Roblox, you have to be a Roblox developer, because if you do make a trending game on Roblox, it could be, a good source of income, even some, a side hustle for a developer or a smaller studio, so they can get some income coming in to help them develop the main game they are developing. And Roblox has been basically popular for as long as I could remember, even from when I was a kid. So that does mean that these developers are earning a good amount of money on Roblox. If not, they wouldn't be staying on Roblox right after all these years. But I think the next platform we can talk about is Sandbox, and Sandbox, compared to these two platforms, is still fairly new. So if you don't know, Sandbox is created by Gary, the same person that created Gary's Mod and the studio Face Punch that did create Rust on Unity. So now they're creating Sandbox, which is basically a love letter to Gary's Mod, and basically using Source Engine 2 from Valve that they were able to license out for Sandbox. And what's pretty crazy is that Sandbox is a little bit different in the sense where you have Sandbox, basically the platform where, similar to Fortnite and Roblox, you can create your game and post it on Sandbox, but you're also able to use the engine that they provide you with Sandbox, which is basically Source Engine 2 with, their own UI that they created for it and everything, and create a standalone game and publish it on Steam. But like I said, the only downside to it is that if you do create your game on Sandbox and you want to publish it as a standalone game, right now you can only publish it to Steam. And I guess that's part of the license agreement they did with Valve, where they wouldn't want a Source 2 engine game to be available anywhere else besides Steam. But I guess that's the price you have to pay, to use a free engine and not pay any royalties for using that engine. But I mean, where else would you want to post your game besides Steam, right? It's the biggest online PC player base that is available. So I guess that's not completely an entirely downside to it or a con. But going a little bit deeper into it, Sandbox does have a similar pricing model to these other platforms as well, where the more people play your game that you created on Sandbox, they have a sort of play fund where all the revenue they've earned from Gary's Mod, currently they're using that to pay out creators that are creating games on Sandbox and the games are becoming popular. They're basically giving you a certain percentage to these creators and developers. They don't specifically state how much they pay you based on how active your game is, but they do say that once you reach, a certain amount, which I believe is $100, then you're able to cash out that money. But I mean, imagine if a developer or a smaller studio is creating games on all of these and they're able to be pretty successful with all their games. That means you have 3 different platforms. Basically, you're earning more income on the side from all your games that you created on these platforms, in addition to whatever else you're doing. So I think that's also a pretty good option. And as well as items that you're able to sell on these other platforms, you're able to create cosmetics on Sandbox, similar to how creators make their own cosmetics on Roblox for the Roblox characters. You can create cosmetics on Sandbox and be able to sell those as well. And I don't know exactly how much creators earn on those, but I believe it's like a 10 to 20% cut that Sandbox takes, and then you keep the rest when you do sell a cosmetic. So talking about platforms now, the last thing I do want to bring up is similar to how you're creating games for all these platforms. Basically, Bethesda is, I believe, creating sort of a new meta. Even though there are some people that might not like it, they're basically creating, I guess, a platform on top of a game, or making the game a certain type of platform. But basically what I'm trying to say is that lately Bethesda, with all their games, have been having their own like creation store, shop, whatever, added on top of their games. So you have that for like Skyrim, and you have it for now recently Fallout 4, and Starfield has had it for a while now too, I believe. And this is another way for, let's say, the main game to get extra content or cosmetics or whatever added to it way after the game has released. Like Skyrim continues having stuff added onto their store from, you know, a bunch of different creators or developers, or I guess Bethesda themselves too. Or let's say, for example, Bethesda reaches out to another studio or small studio to create some sort of DLC type thing for their creation store. I believe they have reached out to someone to create some new DLC that's coming out for Fallout 4. I'll put up a screenshot of that if I do find that. But these are like some more examples of not just like creating games for platforms, but basically working for other well-known studios and putting your name out there on these like well-known games. So let's say a smaller studio or developer had an idea of some cool DLC they wanted to create for, let's say, Fallout, or the new Fallout game that ends up coming out, or Elder Scrolls 6, right? They're definitely going to have the creation store on it. So let's say, you know, they want to get their name out there, their studio out there, and earn some income on the side for it as well. You know, they can create some cool cosmetics or an interesting like DLC with some side quests and stuff and add it on to, let's say, Elder Scrolls 6. And you know, if you really start adding up all these things, even though some platforms, and I believe the creation store as well, take pretty hefty cuts based on the income that you receive. But like for smaller studios and like solo developers, this could like really be a viable option for them to earn some extra money. And I say this because if you're already a solo developer or your small studio that isn't really earning any money right now, let's say maybe like a solo developer, for example, just recently quit their job because they had enough money saved up, you know, to pay their bills and their rent for, let's say, a couple months or a year, to start working on their own game or like start finishing up their own game that they've been creating. Instead of having to do that, you know, they can have, let's say, a couple games on all these platforms, generating them some income so that they're not worried that they're going to be out of money by, let's say, end of the year. And if their game doesn't do well when they release, they're going to have to, you know, get a job and not be able to do game development for full time, or, you know, or not really be able to be a game developer at all. And like I mentioned before, besides like thinking about all the money that's coming in from the games that you create or DLC you create for these main games that are pretty popular, you're also gaining recognition for the stuff you create if it does become even somewhat popular, right? I've seen that some games created on these platforms, you know, you put whatever your name is, studios, onto the game that you did create, and then it becomes a studio that people remember. So let's say you end up releasing a trailer on YouTube and you start sharing that out on social media and everything, and it starts picking up, and you put your studio name on it, people are going to recognize it and say, hey, that's the studio that created a game on Roblox, that's the studio that created some DLC I liked on Starfield, right? So if you look at it from a couple different angles, you know, it becomes like an actual good option for developers or smaller studios to try to get into it, and not just only for the money, but basically give the game that they're creating a better chance when it does release by putting their name out there on different platforms. But yeah, that's just something I wanted to talk about. I've been thinking about it a lot recently with, you know, all the resurgence of, you know, or the upcoming of many small indie studios and indie games that are coming out, and people really enjoying them and making them really popular. I think this is like another good way for, you know, the indie studio to really thrive, or the indie industry, I mean, to thrive. But yeah, leave, you know, your thoughts in the comments below. What do you guys think about this? Or is it really not, I guess, a viable option for these studios, and there's like a better way for them to grow essentially, or have some good income coming in when they are developing their games? But yeah, I'll catch you guys in another video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you are new here, and hype the video if you're on mobile. But that'll be it for me today. Peace out.